For years they knew nothing but cages, chains, and the roar of circus crowds. But in January 2025, everything changed. Kenya and Samba, the last circus tigers in Slovakia, were finally freed. Their story is one of survival, of pain, and, at last, of hope. This is the journey of two tigers who went from the darkness of the circus to the light of sanctuary. For centuries, the circus promised a world of wonder. Under the big top, audiences were captivated by bright lights, thrilling music, and thunderous applause. But behind the vibrant curtains, a much darker story was hidden, one built on fear and coercion. Majestic wild animals like tigers were forced to perform unnatural, demeaning tricks, to jump through fire, to balance on stools, all to obey the trainer's whip and command. And when the show was over, their reality was even worse. Confined to tiny cages, they endured constant transport from town to town. It was a life devoid of dignity, with no freedom to roam, hunt, or live as nature intended. In Slovakia, circuses once relied heavily on these animals. But as awareness grew, the tide began to turn. Animal welfare groups fought for change. New laws were passed. Public opinion moved decisively against the cruelty. And by 2025, only two remained. Kenya and Samba, the very last circus tigers in the country. Their lives carried the weight of an entire era of exploitation. Kenya, the elder of the two, showed clear signs of profound exhaustion. Her body bore the heavy toll of years in confinement. Her teeth were worn down, her muscles atrophied and weak, and her eyes carried the haunting sadness of an animal who had seen too much cruelty. Samba, younger but restless, revealed his suffering in another way. He paced back and forth inside his cage, a repetitive motion that spoke volumes about his mental anguish. This behavior, called stereotypic pacing, is a desperate coping mechanism for animals trapped in captivity for too long. They were fed just enough to survive, but never enough to thrive. Their powerful natural instincts, hunting, running, exploring, had been stolen from them by the cold steel bars of their enclosures. Two tigers, two broken spirits, and yet, deep within them, a spark of wildness still remained, a resilient flame refusing to be extinguished. That spark would soon be reignited. In late 2024, animal welfare organization Four Paws began preparing a daring and complex mission. Their goal, to give Kenya and Samba a new beginning at FELIDA Big Cat Sanctuary in the Netherlands, a place specializing in the care of traumatized big cats. The rescue team worked meticulously, navigating health checks, international permits, and months of logistical planning. Every detail mattered. These were not just animals, they were individuals, survivors of a brutal industry who deserved a second chance. Finally, in January 2025, the cages were opened, not for a performance, but for freedom. Rescuers gently coaxed the wary tigers into secure transport crates, their first step towards a new life. The circus grounds faded behind them. For the first time in their lives, the roar of the crowd was replaced by the quiet hum of an engine, and the promise of something better. But their journey was far from over. The trip from Slovakia to the Netherlands spanned hundreds of miles. Inside the rescue truck, the tigers were monitored closely. Every breath, every movement was watched with care. For hours they traveled across borders, leaving behind a life of exploitation, moving toward the possibility of healing. For Kenya and Samba, this wasn't just a physical journey, it was symbolic. With each mile, they moved further from the past and closer to the life they were always meant to live. Finally, after days of travel, the truck rolled into its destination. The gates of FELIDA Sanctuary opened. Their new home had arrived. The moment was quiet, almost too quiet. The transport crates were set down. The doors creaked open. For a moment, the tigers hesitated. Years of captivity had taught them fear, not freedom. But then, Kenya stepped forward. Her paws touched grass, a feeling she had nearly forgotten. Samba followed, sniffing the air, his ears twitching at the sounds of birds instead of circus music. The difference was immediate. Here there were no chains, no whips, no crowds demanding tricks, only space, air, earth, and the first taste of freedom in years. In the days that followed, the transformation began. Kenya stretched her body fully, muscles awakening as she lay in the sun. Samba explored eagerly, climbing, scratching, testing his strength. With proper food, medical care, and enrichment, their true natures slowly returned. The pacing stopped, the fear softened, and one day, a sound filled the sanctuary. A roar, deep, powerful, untamed, the sound of a tiger reclaiming its identity. Kenya and Samba were no longer circus props, they were tigers again. Their story is more than just a rescue. It's the closing chapter of circus animal exploitation in Slovakia. But it's also a beginning for Kenya and Samba, who will now live out their days with dignity, safety, and care. And a reminder for the world, the era of using wild animals for entertainment must end everywhere. Kenya and Samba can never return to the wild, but in Sanctuary, they have found something just as precious: freedom, peace, and respect. Two tigers, once symbols of suffering, now symbols of hope, of